talk today about something that is a real game changer for my clients who are pre-diabetic or have diabetes type 2. And what I'm talking about is that I always recommend to them to do a 1-month trial with a continuous glucose monitor. A continuous glucose monitor is a small device. Usually what I recommend to my clients is the Freestyle Libre 2 because it's the most available and the cheapest here. So it's this little plastic button, which is a sensor, which is applied to the arm here. One sensor of the Libre 2 lasts for 2 weeks. So usually I'll recommend they buy 2 or 3. And what it does is it measures their glucose levels 24/7. It monitors them. And this is an amazing tool for people who want to make sure that their food plan is keeping them metabolically healthy. The sugar-free recovery program that I run is a program meant for people who feel like they're addicted to food. People who have a very, I would say, fatal attraction to those addictive foods, those sugary, starchy, ultra-processed foods, or just feel like they have a problem with compulsive eating, with volume, that food for them is like cigarettes to a heavy smoker. We have to think about the recovery on very different levels and angles. Okay, first of all, there's the physical recovery. There's getting off the foods that are causing cravings. Many times those foods that cause food cravings are also the foods that are making us metabolically sick. These are the foods that really wreak havoc on our body and cause inflammation. And one of those expressions of inflammations can be what's called insulin resistance. That basically, when we eat a lot of carbohydrates, it raises our blood sugar, and then a system or a hormone called insulin has to deal with all that sugar and put it where it's supposed to be or store it for later like a spare battery. And many times if that system is too taxed, it's like overworked for many, many years, it starts breaking down. And that's when people start developing what's called pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And many times these conditions are reversible with the most effective medication around. It's the medication that doesn't need a prescription, that is sold, you don't even need to go to a pharmacy for it. It is not expensive and it has no side effects, and that is your food. So when we start using food as medicine, we can really see many times these metabolic situations, the pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes getting balanced out and even actually reversing these situations without changing medication or without medication at all, especially people who are pre-diabetic. It means they're already insulin resistant, but the system isn't working really, really well, but it hasn't totally broken down. Usually type 2 diabetes means there's been insulin resistance around for 20 years. My team and I make a huge effort to consistently put out high quality videos to help you on your way to health. If you're getting value from these, you can help us reach more people by liking, sharing, and commenting on this video. Thank you. So why is this CGM such a game changer for people who have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes? Because what I basically do is I tell them to monitor their blood glucose, and for a week I leave them to eat the same way they were eating before they came to me, before we began the program. And they eat the way they've been eating before, and then we go into starting the sugar detox and getting really off the addictive foods that are also the foods that are metabolically negatively affecting people and making people sick. And then they see the difference in their blood glucose levels from what was happening the way they were eating before to what is going on now that we're getting off all these. We're starting to eat real food that will heal our brain and lower sugar cravings, and also food that will heal the body from a metabolic standpoint. What it also does when the clients who agree to use a CGM, what's so wonderful about it is that they can really, really fine-tune their food plan to the best possible metabolic health for them. We can really see, because I really do believe in personalized nutrition. There are certain foods that maybe somebody with type 2 diabetes will eat it and it'll be perfectly fine for their blood glucose levels. But for the other person, it's going to start spiking their blood glucose levels, which will spike their insulin, which will overtax the insulin system. So then we can build a food plan that is also, on the one hand, we always will take into account first the addiction. If this is a food that triggers craving or obsession or preoccupation or some kind of loss of control, that comes before the metabolic health. But after that, we want to make sure that we're eating things that are keeping our blood glucose levels from spiking, right? We don't want to see peaks and troughs. We want to see a nice rise when we eat, and then we want to see a nice lowering of the levels, and then we want to see that lower level, low maintenance level overnight, or that nice low maintenance level in between meals. So it really gives from a metabolic. Now, this is a tool, one tool of many in the sugar-free recovery program. And sadly, some of my clients really don't like it, like sort of scares them, or they don't like the idea of having their glucose continuously monitored. And I think that I can really understand that, because a big part of the disease of addiction is denial. A big part of not dealing with the way we eat is like not wanting to see the real truth, not really saying what we actually ate, not really wanting to know the results or the consequences of our eating habits. And the continuous glucose monitor really like puts that in your face. But if you're really looking to recover from food addiction with real honesty, in the healthiest way possible, also from an addiction standpoint, but also from a metabolic standpoint, doing 1 month of continuous glucose monitoring can really be a game changer. Even healthy people are starting to use the continuous glucose monitor just to make sure that they are eating the right foods that don't spike their glucose levels too high. I did it, and it was really, for me, an affirmation that my food plan is right for me from a metabolic standpoint. So here's the thing though. First of all, remember that I am not a physician, and this does not replace any kind of medical advice that you are getting from your physician. The other thing that I can say is that this usually is done privately for people who are pre-diabetic or diabetes type 2. I can just tell you that here in Israel, the continuous glucose monitor is provided by the health insurances only for people with type 1 diabetes, that they're insulin dependent. So these need to be bought privately and used privately. And it's not a huge, well, I don't like saying what is a big cost or a not big cost. I can tell you what the cost is here in Israel. To privately buy a sensor is around $75 or 300 shekel. So for 1 month, you would need 2 sensors. That would be something like a cost of about 600 Israeli shekels or $150. But this is money really, really well invested. Besides the idea that I'm saying that this is not any kind of medical advice to replace what your physician recommends, I will say that in order to really understand the information that the continuous glucose monitor gives, requires many times a healthcare professional. I am a nurse or a dietitian or a physician or somebody who is really well versed. It doesn't, somebody who really knows how to analyze the information, how to give you the right conclusions about, or help you come to the right conclusions about the information, how to read it, how to apply it, how to, use it, and when to measure, etc., etc. I am offering, if somebody is interested in doing a program with a continuous glucose monitor, I do have 2 slots for left. That's all the openings I have for the next few months of 2 more private clients. If you are pre-diabetic or have diabetes type 2, or if you had gestational diabetes when you were pregnant, women who had diabetes when they were pregnant, they have a 50% chance of developing diabetes type 2, which means that you can assume that women who have had diabetes when they were pregnant are insulin resistant. So these are the three type of people who I have an opening for to help them get into sugar-free recovery, especially if you feel like there's not just a matter of being metabolically compromised by the way you're eating, but also maybe feeling like you know what to do, but you just can't apply it. There's like a loss of control, or this, be very feeling like food controls you instead of you controlling it. And you also have insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, diabetes type 2. I do have 2 slots opened for 2 more private clients. PM me and we can discuss it. And I hope that this has given you some food for thought. Bye-bye.